All right, hi there. Welcome back to part 2 of our weekly meal prep. I hope that you enjoyed last week's meal prep, and we're going to follow those same strategies today for our week 2 meal prep. I've got them written down here if you don't have your handout handy. So we're going to do a cooked vegetable, a cooked green, a cooked grain. We're going to have a raw green, or actually a salad today. Breakfast, main dish, and a primarily bean dish also. So what I'm going to make is quinoa cooked with some salsa, a tofu scramble with veggies, sauteed garlicky spinach and tomatoes, fagioli soup, a cauliflower faux fried rice, red beans with the Holy Trinity in it, and salad, giant salad in a bowl. So let's get started. Okay. My first recipe is fagioli soup, and you can have this by itself or with on top of the quinoa that we're going to make, or you can make pasta and stir that in at the end or just serve it on top. But it's pretty easy to make, and it comes together pretty quickly. I'm going to start with some yellow onions. You'll notice these are a staple in my meal prep and in my life. They're so good for us, cooked and raw. I'm going to get a bowl to throw stuff in. So I've got a whole onion, and this fagioli soup is the perfect thing to make a bunch of and freeze. So we're not going to eat all of this throughout the week. It's going to make about 5 quarts, but it'll be really good, and we'll have some leftovers for the next time that we want to thaw that. Also, we need about 3 stalks of celery. There we go. And basically, I'm just going to put these in a pan on top of the stove. I'm just going to use an electric piece. It's a little easier for me. And I'm going to cook the veggies for a few minutes, just until they're a little bit more tender. I'm just kind of, the cut I'm doing is just kind of a big rough dice, if you will. So the carrot, friendly reminder, don't wash it. Most of the nutrients in your root veggies are right next to it. I mean, just wash it, don't peel it. Sorry. Okay, here we go. And we need some garlic. So with your garlic, you always want to cut your garlic, mince it at least 10 minutes before you're going to expose it to heat. I'm doing a meal prep. I'll usually mince several heads, several bulbs of garlic, and then let them sit out until I'm ready to use them. So I'm going to put all my veggies in here. Then I have to turn it on. It works better when I do. You could put this on your stove, put the lid on it, because I'm just trying to kind of sweat those veggies. And cook those for about 5 minutes. And then we'll add the rest of the ingredients. From here, it's a dump and stir. So I have diced tomatoes, fire roasted diced tomatoes, some white cannellini beans or navy beans, that's fine, white kidneys, Great Northern, whatever you want to use. And then we use a dark bean, so I use a kidney bean in here. It's got a cup of V8 juice in it, low sodium, some spaghetti sauce, and then some spices that are going to be really delicious. All right, so these have been cooking for several minutes, and now I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. Actually, I forgot to add my garlic, so let's add a few cloves-ish or more of the garlic. Then our diced tomatoes. It's 1.5 cups. And 1.5 cups of fire roasted tomatoes also. 1.5 cups of kidneys. So these are ours, we just thawed them. 1.5 cups of navy beans. Again, we just thawed those. A cup of V8 juice. I'm going to reserve the parsley until later. I need 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, 2 teaspoons of dried basil. The recipe calls for crushed red pepper. It's going to make it a little spicy, so you're welcome to leave that out if you don't want it to be spicy. I'm going to add some spaghetti sauce. You can either add a 25-ounce jar or a 40. This is a 40, so I'm just doing a little bit less. And some broth. Right. So it's about 4 cups of broth. Then I'm just going to cover this, bring it to a low boil. You can see it fills up the pan pretty well. So I'm going to cover this, bring it to a low boil, and turn it down to low, and just let it simmer for about half an hour till everything is nice and tender and it's ready to go. So that's it. That's fajuli soup, and you can have it on top of anything you like or plain. So when I'm cooking for the kids, they're not real big on chunky vegetable soups. So after I make this, I actually blend it, and they think it's just tomato soup. They actually really like it a lot. I'm going to bring this back here so it's out of our way. And remember, if you hear that clicking, that's just a reminder for me to turn the temperature down on my pans. So the next recipe is red beans with the Holy Trinity. Have you heard of that before? So that's what Cajuns call 3 vegetables because it's the base of so many of our recipes. Holy Trinity, we're referring to celery, bell pepper, and onions. So we're going to have some red beans with the Holy Trinity, and you can have these on top of the quinoa or on some brown rice if you'd like. I'm going to start with onion. I'm going to take my pan here and just warm it so that when I put the veggies in, they sizzle. So that's somewhere between medium and medium low. I cut my veggies a little bit smaller. I'll cut up the onion because I don't want big chunks. I mean, the star of this dish is the beans, the red beans. And so I'm going to have small cut veggies really to just give it that savoriness and added flavor. I'm not looking for a lot of texture from the vegetable. So even our celery, I'm not going to just regularly slice it. This is going to be a small, I don't know if you can see that, a little small piece. I just want to get the maximum amount of flavor out of it without that texture. Okay. My onion was pretty big, so it's going to be very oniony for our red beans. And the bell pepper, again, I'm also going to cut it pretty small. And you can have yours, what they refer to as dry, which is just cooking the veggies in the pan and putting the beans in there. Or you can kind of have them pot liquor, which is how we make a lot of our greens. We have extra broth in there to make it kind of saucy. And that's the way I prefer to do it if I'm eating this over brown rice, for example, or quinoa, some type of grain. I love having that juice around it. So I'm going to put this in our pan. I'm basically looking to wet these to kind of sweat it. So I'm going to cover it. I want to tenderize them as quickly as possible and cook it on medium. So it'll take about 5 minutes. So it'll take about 5 minutes, and then at that point, take our cooked red beans. So we have these, and if you're freezing them like I do, just thaw out 2 packages. That'll be plenty. So about 3 cups of red beans, and that'll be fantastic. So that's, forgot to get the rest of this out of there. There we go. You can add garlic if you want. Garlic never hurt anything, but I don't usually use it in this recipe. Okay, next, I want to make my favorite breakfast. That's tofu scramble. I used to be a big egg eater, so this is a really nice, much healthier option for me for breakfast. It's very easy, and it's something that I can pre-make. 2 of my kids really like this, and so 2 of the boys, so I really like to make big batches of it. So, and I'm actually going to make more than I normally would in a meal prep day because we wouldn't eat this much in a week, but I want to show you how easy it is to freeze. All right, so I have some tofu, and we're using the firm tofu, the packed tofu, so not the silken kind. I do like to press it because the tofu is packed in water, so I've had this I usually put it between 2 plates and something heavy on top. So I have a cup with spoons on top. And can you see all of this water that came off it? I don't know, it might be too bright in here, but there's probably at least a 1/4 cup or a 1/2 cup of water in there. So I'm going to set this aside, my tofu, and work on my veggies. I'm not a big fan of tofu scramble that's just straight tofu. I like to have some veggies in it. I like to break up the heavy texture of the tofu too. So I'm going to add a couple of different things. So I'm going to add onions and bell peppers. So normally one batch, if I was meal prepping this for the week, I would do 2 blocks of the firm or extra firm tofu, 1 bell pepper of your choice, and then 1 onion. All right, so I'm going to do 4 blocks though, because I want to show you how you can just maximize your time in the kitchen. And so I'm going to use 2 bell peppers and 2 onions. So very, very simple, and do whatever veggies you like. Sometimes I put mushrooms in here, sometimes fresh spinach. That's good also. But when I'm freezing it, I don't really like the spinach reheated. I'd rather just do that when I'm going to eat all of it fresh and not reheat it. I like big chunks of my veggies in the scramble. So I'm going to peel off this outer layer of my onion and just use a big dice. I like that texture difference in my scramble. So I make pretty big chunks with my onions and bell peppers, and it is the same when I add mushrooms in here. I make big thick slices of mushrooms instead of real small ones, trying to hide it. All right. These onions are pretty big, so I think I'm only going to use half of this second onion. You just never know in Texas how big they're going to be. I'm turning down my veggies. It won't hurt them to just cook a little bit longer. All right. Aren't you glad you don't have to watch me cut with a knife for all of these videos? It takes so long. All right. Whoa, that's a lot of onion. Love it. That'll be good. And then finally some bell pepper. So I'm just using red and orange, and I gently cut around it so I have my pieces to work with. And then I can pull out the seeds and the stem, put that in my little stash pile so I can make some more broth with it. Then I'm just kind of rough, sort of thick slicing my bell pepper. And I'm going to put that in the pan too with the onion, and then we'll just saute them and cook them together. This adds nice color contrast to the tofu because once we add the turmeric to it, it all just kind of turns yellow, you know. But this is just my comfort food breakfast. I always like to have a green when I'm having tofu scramble, but it's just so filling, and I find that I feel full and satisfied for quite some time after I have it. So it's kind of my power breakfast. If you prefer, you could use tempeh too instead of tofu. I'm going to do 1 more bell pepper. So that'll be 1 bell pepper per 2 packages of tofu, 2 blocks. Now I'm going to saute this. I saute mainly with the lid because the lid keeps things from sticking, just keeps that natural moisture from the veggies in there. And then I open it up and kick it around a little bit. All right, there's our bell peppers. And I'm going to switch back over to the red beans real quick. Bright and colorful. No seasonings yet, and I'll tell you why. So here's our veggies. Ooh, these are nice and tender. My onions are pretty translucent. So I'm just going to stir in my pre-cooked beans. See how much easier it is when you have cooked beans? You can just go ahead and do whatever you want. Okay, so I've got my cooked beans in there with the veggies. I'm going to add about half a cup of water or broth if you want, so we can get that kind of sauciness. And then about a teaspoon of dried thyme. And that's it. This is going to be a great bean dish to complement whatever it is that we want to pair it with throughout the week. So I'm just going to simmer this around medium low to kind of thicken it up and let those flavors marry together. Okay, so while our veggies are softening and cooking in there, what are we going to do with this tofu? So I have the equivalent of 4 blocks of tofu in here. And so tofu is kind of this pale yellow, right? So, or like a pale white. So I'm going to add some ground turmeric. This is a great anti-inflammatory, but also what it does here is it makes our tofu yellow. So it looks more like eggs if that's what you're going for. But don't add too much turmeric because some people feel like that gets too bitter. So I do, for one batch where I'm using 2 blocks of tofu, I might use a 1/16 or an 1/8 of a teaspoon of turmeric, but you're welcome to use more if you like the flavor. Also, I like to add 1 tablespoon of oregano per 2 blocks of tofu. So I'm going to double that for now so that we have enough. Then you just need a fork and you want to mash it. And I like to press my tofu. You don't have to if you're pressed for time. Get it? Okay, but I like to press mine because I don't like a whole lot of extra water sitting around in here. And this will take a few minutes to get it. I don't like to see big squares. I like it all evenly mashed. So that'll take a few minutes. And those should be soft right in time. And just keep on mashing. And it won't turn yellow so much right now, but when you cook it, then it will turn that bright yellow that we're used to seeing. Some other spices you could add in here as paprika. That would be really good. I like to do that when I serve it. It's nice with fresh paprika, or even if you can find that smoked chili powder, that's really good too. I like that. All right, so here's our tofu scramble. Also, sometimes I've taken the time to dice and steam some potatoes and fold those into here too. Whatever you're using, at this point, you want raw tofu and then cooked everything else. Let me find my pepper. Oh my goodness. All right, I like to add ground black pepper to my tofu as well. If you're gonna add salt to your tofu scramble, don't do it yet because we're gonna freeze this. And in the freezer, salt, the flavor of salt kind of dies when it's frozen. The sodium doesn't go away, so there's still a lot of sodium in it, but you don't have that salty flavor. So You may see this with like the frozen convenience meals at the grocery store. They tend to be high in sodium. And that's because in order for there to be any salty flavor left after it's frozen, the manufacturers have to add a whole lot of salt in the beginning. So if you're ever going to freeze something that you may use, I don't recommend using a lot of salt, but if you are going to use salt, don't do it before you freeze it. Save that until after, when you've thawed it. Okay, so these are almost ready. They just need a few more minutes. So there's something else that I want to add to our tofu scramble in addition to our veggies. I do for two reasons. One, well, what I'm adding is quinoa, but I like to cook my quinoa. I replace half of the water with salsa. Gives it a little kick, gives it a little flavor. Also, I'm always trying to get that lycopene from the tomatoes into my boys. So that's one reason that I add it, so that it makes it a little bit lighter for the tofu, so it's not so heavy. And the other reason I add it is it goes a little further when I add a bunch of quinoa. Now scramble is going to last through more meals because it's got so much other stuff in it. Because this is not hard to make, but it takes a little bit of effort and a little bit of planning. And so generally, I'll just make a big old thing of this, save half of it, put the other half in the fridge. So let's do that. I'm going to set this aside for a minute while we're waiting on those veggies, and let's talk about the quinoa. I'm just using a little saucepan. I have 2 cups of quinoa in here. Now, normally for 1 cup of quinoa, you would add 2 cups of water. Instead of doing that, I'm going to replace 1 of the cups of water with a cup of salsa. So for 1 cup of quinoa, you would add 1 cup of water and 1 cup of salsa. And you can really spice it up if you want to add some garlic powder and onion powder and all this, but I'm just using this as our basic grain throughout the week. And so I prefer to do the spicing later on before I eat it. So I'm going to just bring this to a boil and turn it down to low, and it cooks in about 15 minutes. You want to be sure you watch it. You don't want your quinoa to overcook and get mushy. That's not very good in general, but it's definitely not good mixed with the tofu. The fajuli soup is coming along nicely. The beans are going. Whew, that is a lot of veggies. So while I'm waiting for my veggies to soften for my tofu scramble and also my quinoa to cook, I'm going to move on to another recipe, and that is a cauliflower kind of faux fried rice, if you will. So I'm going to start with the veggies that I would normally put into a fried rice. I'm going to cut up some carrots. I don't do a slaw cut on it. I want them to be a little bigger. So this is more like a hash brown or a julienne cut. I want them to be noticeable in my rice. It adds pretty color. And then some celery. I'm actually going to waffle cut this celery so it's a little bit bigger, a little more noticeable. So we've got bigger pieces of that. I like in this to be able to distinguish between the different veggies instead of just all the mushiness staying together. But I am going to cook these separate from the cauliflower. I'm going to cook the celery and the carrots first. I'm going to get those tender for a few minutes over medium to medium low heat, and then I will cut up the cauliflower. Okay. Oh, this is quinoa is ready to go down. Okay. Next, I need to cut my cauliflower into rice. So cauliflower is a cruciferous veggie, which is great because I don't think that we have any other cabbage or broccoli in this meal prep for cruciferous veggies. So this is good. So I'm going to cut this to make it look like rice. And you could do this by hand too if you wanted. It would just take a minute. Right? Oh, yeah. So this is going to be great and delicious. And cauliflower, it cooks pretty quickly, and you just don't want to overcook it because then it would be more like mush, like mashed cauliflower, and more like a mashed potato consistency. There we go. And this is about 1 head of cauliflower. So for 1 head of cauliflower, I used 1 large carrot or 2 smalls, and then 3 stalks of celery. If you want, you can add onions. You can toast sesame seeds ahead of time if you like that. That would be good. Whatever veggies you like in there. I really like broccoli too in my cauliflower faux fried rice. Squash would be good. Some zucchini, I mean. I would prefer that over squash, I think. Everything's clicking. Everything's cooking around me. Okay, so I'm going to set this cauliflower aside for a little while. Check on my veggies. Oh, these look great. Ooh, they're almost soft enough. If you want them firm, take them out when they're at the consistency that you prefer. I like them a little soft, so I'm going to keep cooking them on low for a few more minutes. I'm going to put the lid on my carrots and celery. I'm going to speed those up a little bit. And this cauliflower, we're going to come back to that in a few minutes. So I think that we just have 2 dishes left. We have sauteed spinach. Oh, I think this has quickly become my favorite green in the morning for my breakfast. It's so good. So sauteed spinach, and then we have a giant salad in a bowl or a box, however you want to store it. So, you know what else? I want to add, I've got extra garlic, so I'm going to add that to my tofu scramble because why not? Garlicky tofu scramble is great. So I'm going to put in about 4 cups worth. And I tend to keep that on top of my veggies because sometimes the garlic can stick if I put it directly on the pan. All right, very easy green to cook. We're going to make sauteed spinach with tomatoes and garlic. So very simple. I have some cherry tomatoes. These are my favorite to use that have already been cut in half. And then I'm going to, since there's so much moisture in these tomatoes, I'm just going to put my garlic in there. I'm going to put about 5 cloves of garlic. I think that'll be good. And I'm just going to cover this and cook it on medium-low. I want the tomatoes to sweat a little bit but not get mushy. That's why I use cherry tomatoes instead of a regular tomato that's diced because these are a little bit firmer. So I'm going to cook this on medium-low, and then I'll come back and stir in our fresh spinach. So really, really, really simple to make. I want to show you something. My veggies. Sometimes I get this brown on the bottom of the pan, which is totally fine. I don't mind that. That's just the caramelized sugar. So when that happens, put a tiny bit of water in my lid because my lid's already hot. Put it on there. And that brown just comes right up and it actually comes onto the veggies. So these are perfectly tender for our tofu scramble, but I'm not going to finish that yet because we're waiting on our quinoa. So I'll just set these aside keep them warm, and we will come back to that. So our carrots and celery are tender-ish. They're still a little al dente, which is nice. Now I'm going to stir in the cauliflower and a little bit of black pepper. See how it even looks like fried rice? Isn't that neat? I think that's plenty. I still like to have a lot of veggie with it. I'm going to put in, I have about a teaspoon of soy sauce to kind of give it that brown look that we're used to, with a tiny bit of salty flavor as it's cooking. If you like rice vinegar or mirin, you could add it at this time. And I'm just going to cook this on medium low for about 5 minutes. I'm adding black pepper now. I don't want the cauliflower to overcook and get mushy. That's not what we're going for. I still want it to be a little bit firm, a little al dente, since we're mimicking fried rice. Yeah, it even looks like it from far away, right? Delicious. Smells so good in here. I just love it. Okay. I'm going to check on our garlicky tomatoes. Okay. The garlic and tomatoes have been cooking for a little under 5 minutes, and they're ready. So next I'm going to add just handfuls. I mean, this is probably equivalent to 8 or 10 ounces of spinach. And I'll return it to the heat and cook it on medium, low, and give that spinach just a few minutes to wilt. And as it starts to wilt, I'm just going to keep turning it and tossing it with the tomatoes, and that'll help the rest of it wilt. I don't like it really overcooked where it gets kind of webby and slimy. I'm not a fan of that kind of spinach, so I just barely want it cooked. Let me check our quinoa. Oh, this is looking great. Probably 2 more minutes on the quinoa. All right, I'm going to stir our spinach and tomatoes so that can start to wilt a little better. The ones that are on the bottom will always wilt the fastest near that hot moisture from the tomatoes. Can you see that? Oh, and with the garlic, it's so good. And that is just about there. It really only needs maybe 1 more minute. I do like that spinach still to have a little bit of shape and body to it. So I just keep stirring because I don't want to overcook it. Just want that flavor, the garlic, and the sweetness from the tomatoes to combine. And there we go. I'm going to call that ready, and I'll hold it up so you can see it a little better. There's our spinach with garlic and tomatoes. Really simple. And you can season it however you like, but I often find myself just eating it plain like this. So let me move this forward and out of the way. Oop, we lost some spinach. Now this smells delicious. I feel like I'm in a Chinese restaurant right now. This is our cauliflower fried rice. So this is going to be a great go-to veg this week that I can eat by itself or combine it with something else. It would even be great with the spinach in it. So see, that is really good. All right, put this over here. Hold on a second. I accidentally locked my stove. Okay, let's come back to the tofu scramble. So if you remember, we've got all of our tofu mashed up rather nicely here. We've got our seasoning. So we added turmeric, oregano, and black pepper. We've got beautiful sauteed onions and bell pepper. I believe we did add some garlic this time. There we go. And I want to add some quinoa. So here's our cooked quinoa. So I call this lazy Mexican quinoa because when I make real Mexican quinoa, I stir in beans and corn and fire roasted diced tomatoes and so a little bit of cumin, a little bit of chili powder. It's so good. So this is my lazy version of that. I just cooked it in salsa to give it a little bit more flavor. If your quinoa is ever too moist or you just want to add something else to it, add some nutritional yeast. Stir that in, that'll help thicken it. But also I like nutritional yeast. It gives it a little cheesy essence, I guess. So I'm not putting all of this in the tofu. I would say for 2 blocks of tofu, I would add maybe 1 cup of quinoa. So for this, I'm going to add about 2 cups of quinoa and then stir this in. And again, this is going to help my tofu scramble go farther, right, with all the big eaters that I have in the house. But also, it really lightens up the texture of the tofu. And I find for more picky eaters who aren't used to that texture quite yet, they really appreciate this with the quinoa mixed into it. And remember, I have not cooked this tofu yet, and I don't recommend eating it raw like this. It's easier to digest when it's cooked for sure. But at this point, what I would do at home, I would break this up into containers, however much I think that I would eat in 1 week. So for this, I would probably break this up into 3 or 4 containers and freeze those. So my veggies are cooked, the quinoa is cooked, the tofu is not. And then when I thaw it, the only thing that I need to do is get a hot pan and put the tofu scramble in there, put the lid on it, and I cook it between medium low and medium for about 7 to 10 minutes so that tofu can cook through. And this is a great way. I mean, this can last a long time. So in terms of meal prep today, I would set aside 1/3 of this fresh, put refrigerator, and that's what you'll cook throughout the week when you want it, and then freeze the rest of this in a couple of different batches, a couple of different containers, so that you can have it later. And this is a very satisfying breakfast full of fiber and protein. You're getting vitamin C, allium family veggies. You're just getting a whole lot in here, lycopene from that salsa, and not to mention it is delicious. So I hope you enjoyed this one as well. The last thing that we have on this meal prep day is our raw vegetable or salad. And I'm just making a giant salad in a bowl. That's what I call it. Oh my goodness, this is going to be the best salad in the world. So my base here are just mixed spring greens, and you can add spinach. Also, because we're not going to put a dressing on it right now, that's for when you serve it. You could add some fresh cabbage, that would be great. But I love arugula. I love that peppery flavor in the arugula. So I just put a bunch in there, and I fill it to where it's at the top of my container, basically, because the weight of the veggies is going to push it down. So I just toss this so that it's nice and mixed. And the idea is that I spread out all my veggies kind of in a layer. So when I'm going to make my lunch for the day or just have a meal, just have that salad, I can just take a scoop out and I'll get everything. I don't toss it once it's all together because the little ingredients tend to fall towards the bottom. So make sure that your salad is nice and mixed, and we're going to go crazy with vegetables. Is that all right? So I'm going to add some broccoli. Definitely want to have some cruciferous in there. That's shown to arrest the growth of cancer cells in some of the studies. So I want that and I typically use a lot. I also like the firmness of broccoli, so I am just using the crowns mainly today, but if you have some leftover broccoli stems, by all means, chop those up and put them in here as well. Okay, so we've got broccoli. Before I move on to my next food, I take a minute and I spread it out. All right, spread and kind of press it down. So next I want to do some cauliflower. So I've got that just cut up into small enough pieces so that I can cut it here on the machine. Okay, spread it out. I am done with these. I'm going to use some of my dry veggies first, if you notice. I like waffle cut carrots, like big chunks of carrots in my salad. So that's what I'm going to cut here. If you don't, you could use that slaw if you don't like that big crunchiness of a carrot. But I like these big kind of waffle discs, which are good. And I'm doing my hard veggies first. I'm going to add some edamame. So you can add your beans at this point. Next up, walnuts. I'm going to do my nuts and seeds here before we put all the wet veggies in. And the reason is because I don't want the wet veggies sitting on the greens throughout the week, making them mushy. Right. So I've got walnuts. Man, this is beautiful already. Some chia seeds. You could put some flax seeds in here as well if you wanted to. Some raw sunflower seeds. That's good. Okay. Now I've got some pretty moist stuff coming up. I think I will kind of big chop the bell pepper. I'll probably big chop everything else so it doesn't get, small and mushy. So just going to kind of big dice everything. One of them has a really big piece there. All right. And that's just leftover bell pepper. So I just kind of use whatever's in the fridge that needs to be used for the week. I've got some raw onion. All right. Woo! It's going to give it a little zing. So I'll leave that up to you. If you want raw onion in your salad, I like it, but you might be careful when you breathe on people. Next, some yellow squash. That just cuts up so easily. I use a lot of squash and zucchini, I think, for that reason. So we got some zucchini now. So I find that my biggest hurdle to not having salad is that I don't want to sit down and make a salad every time I want to have salad. And I'm one of those people who likes salad. I like a lot of stuff in my salad. I don't typically like just greens and one or two veggies. And so I get lazy. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So instead, it really helps me to do it this way. And so I've got it on hand. I'm going to use a cucumber. This is a giant English cucumber, so I don't know if I need all of it. But again, I'm going to cut it kind of big so it doesn't get all soggy. So I'll probably use half of that. I feel like that's plenty. I've got some cherry tomatoes. I did cut these in half because I just am not a fan of them whole where you bite them and they slide around your mouth and stuff. So just cut those in half and they'll be fine. They're far enough away from the greens. And then lastly, I'm going to add some beets. I am going to shred these so they're a little smaller, but they're not very wet, so it'll be good. Okay, oh my gosh. Beets are a superfood, and I always have to remind myself to add them to things. Oh my gosh, then they smell so good. There we go. So here is our weekly salad. This is going to be great. So depending on how many people you have in your family eating this, you may want to scale it down. This will be good for our family. This will last us through several days. On our meal rotation, I would put this towards the beginning of the week while it's fresh. And you can top it with your favorite salad dressing. One of my favorite made salad dressings to make is I put an avocado in the blender with about a cup of water, and then I just fill it with fresh greens. I put the whole bunch of fresh cilantro in there. I put several scallions, like the green and white parts of the onion. I also put the whole bunch of fresh parsley, just any kind of fresh green or herb that I can get my hands on. And I blend that, and oh my goodness, it's so good. I put a little black pepper in there because I like black pepper. It's so good, and it'll last in the fridge for about 2 weeks when I make it. So I can have that in different variations. And so this is our giant salad in a bowl. I'm going to put a cover on this so it'll stay sealed. So make sure that whatever container you're making your salad in, you can fully seal it so that it will last the longest. So let's see what we have made for today. So look at everything that I've made today. Well, one thing that I made that wasn't on the list was a total mess of my kitchen. But look at all the great food that we ended up with. We have our fagioli soup. If you blend it, you can just call it tomato soup and hide all those veggies and beans in there. We've got our giant salad in a bowl that's going to help give us fresh, raw sustenance for several days. I have sauteed spinach with tomatoes and garlic. Our quinoa cooked with a little bit of salsa. Tofu scramble for days. We're going to freeze most of this. Our cauliflower unfried rice, faux fried rice, if you will, with carrots and celery, and it just smells and tastes so delicious. And then finally, our red beans with veggies. So we've got some nice base here. We've got our veggies to pair. Remember, I like to do a green, a grain, and a bean. And so that's how I like to combine things. With the tofu scramble, that's primarily bean. There's a little bit of grain and veggie in it, but it goes great paired with the sauteed spinach and tomatoes. Also, these three go nicely together. The cauliflower faux fried rice with the quinoa to soak up the juice from the red beans with the Holy Trinity in it. Our fagioli soup has lots of vegetables and beans in it. So you could add a grain if you want. You can put a piece of crusty bread in there to have with it, or serve it on pasta, or just serve it plain. It's delicious. Either way, you've got a lot of go-to things here that you can help put things together with. So I hope this was helpful. This is meal prep day number 2. Again, if you're interested, this Salad Master food processor is free. It's not something we sell. All you have to do to get one is to see a Salad Master demonstration and have some of your friends over to watch it with you. And man, it really makes a difference. We've been in here less than an hour. I've made all of this food, and it's because I can just chop, and I can actually chop and talk at the same time. You might have noticed when I was cutting with the knife, I have to be very quiet because I'm focusing on not cutting a finger off. So if you're in Louisiana, Texas, or Oklahoma area, call us, call Food Save Me, and myself, my husband, or some of our chefs will come do the demonstration for you. We cook a 5-course plant-based meal for you, and you can sign up on the website, foodsaveme.com, or call 817-421-FOOD. People always ask me, Katherine, what is that thing you're using to cut everything with? I literally cut everything with this. This is my Salad Master food processor, and I travel with it. I love it so much. If we're going out of town, I bring the food processor with me because I love to use it, but also it gets my kids involved in the cooking. This is not something we sell, but it is something you can earn for free. So I want to share that program with you in just a minute. The food processor, it comes with 5 cones, and they all cut a variety of different ways, but pretty much any fruit or vegetable, even tomatoes, bell peppers, all that. I do walnuts and pecans in mine. So anything you want, you can cut on the Salad Master machine. These are dishwasher safe, also come with a lifetime warranty. Now, if you're not familiar with Salad Master, it's a line of healthy cookware, and it's actually the only cookware that I trust to cook food for my family. So if we're traveling somewhere and they don't have Salad Master cookware, we bring our own pan with us because this is what I'm most comfortable eating food from for our family. I believe it is the highest quality, most advanced and cleanest cooking system on the market. Salad Master is backed by a limited lifetime warranty, proven performance, and actual nutrition studies that show that food cooked in Salad Master retains many more nutrients than food cooked in traditional methods. Salad Master is not sold in stores. We do in-home cooking demonstrations. I hope you'll sign up for a dinner demonstration so I can cook for you. If you're in the state of Texas, I'll come to your home, or you're welcome to come to our office in Southlake. And if you're outside of that area, then we can do a virtual demonstration through Zoom or another app of your choice. It's fun, it's informative. You know, in our nutrition classes, we talk about nutrients, about vitamins and minerals that you need. But on the Salad Master dinner demonstration, the reason it's so important is because I'm going to teach you about enemies to nutrition. Things that you might be doing, things that I did before I knew better that were actually killing these precious nutrients, either cooking them too hot of heat or doing things to dissolve the nutrients out, things that are working against our health and healing. And so that's what we talk about on the dinner demonstration. I also show you how to cook really fast, which is nice, but I think the most important part of the demonstration is the cookware test. And that's where we test the different types of cooking surfaces. And I will teach you how to do that so that you can actually taste if there's any chemical reaction coming from your pans when you heat them. You can taste that because your food is only as healthy as the surface that it's cooked in. And so this is what we talk about on the dinner demonstration. It's completely free, and you can sign up for the dinner demo on foodsaveme.com. I hope I get the opportunity to take this a step further with you so that you can learn about cooking surface, cooking techniques to protect all of these great nutrients. And I want to help you get that Salad Master food processor for free. This is easy. You just see the demonstration, provide a couple of referrals for your friends to see it, and then you can get this machine for free. It makes my life so much easier. And I think that's the biggest complaint from students when they're trying to transition to a whole food plant-based diet. It's just a lot of chopping and a lot of prep work. So anytime you can get a tool, especially a free one, then that's a great thing to just make your journey easier. So check it out. You can sign up on foodsaveme.com.